that was fucked. Here we are again, folks, and being surprised after seeing that horrible movie. Go check out my review on Tarot. I've been posting frequently just to keep everything going. There is going to be a watch-along live stream with Pop Culture PB this Tuesday, so I'll get back to that. But I just want to be doing consistent videos. So here we go. I am going to talk about a very interesting, based on a true story type of show. And the thing that makes this probably more true than most shows that are like based on true events or based on a true story is the person the story is about wrote and actually stars in the show. Now, he does state some of the situations are dramatized as it is a TV show, and you have to keep people interested. But for the most part, a lot of what he puts in happened, whether or not he changed it to make it slightly more dramatic. 90% of what is in this show is actually from the dude's perspective. The dude stars in it. And I was telling Bitchy about this, and she was like, holy cow, like he actually is willing to relive the trauma of the dark shit that happens in the show to tell the story. And something about me has to respect somebody willing to do that. Now, I want to warn you, there's not a lot per se of the stuff that the show is associated in. Some of it's very heavily implied or cut away from. But this does deal with grape. You can't say it on YouTube. This does deal with stalking and assault and all sorts of crazy shit. So if that stuff's bothers you, this is not the show for you. But I think it is very interesting on that level. And the one thing that really fascinates me about this show is that men going through assault or being stalked and things like that is not taken very seriously. And you see that from the outset. So what is this story about? Well, the story is about real life creator Richard Gatt. He is a stand-up comedian, but he starts from a very low place. Something happened. It's revealed later. Like I said, this first half is non-spoilers. I do have to spoil on the back end the endings so I can comment on certain critiques I heard about the show. So anyways, he's working at this bar. He's gone through a breakup, and he's still staying at he's still staying at his girlfriend's parents', I believe, house. It's a weird situation. And so he's bartending. He meets this woman, and she appears nice. He feels bad for her, offers her a drink, and that's how this crazy fucking story starts. So who is in this? Richard Gatt playing himself, or in his story, but in the show he's called Donnie Dunn. I guess changed the name for certain purposes. Hey, lovely Sherry, welcome. This is my non-spoiler review of Baby Reindeer. There will be spoilers at the end, but if you've already seen it, I'm going to kind of break down and go through my own thoughts. Anyways, so Richard Gatt plays Donnie Dunn. Jessica Gunning plays Martha Scott, a former lawyer with a criminal past. And this is largely based on them. However, Jessica Gunning is so captivating. And it's hard to play somebody who's stalking someone and to get the audience to kind of see your point of view because of the subject that it's touching on. But there are certain points in this show where her acting is so fucking amazing. At a point, you can kind of see some way she's coming from, because in all of this, what I think is so ballsy and unique about this show is that Richard Gatt telling this story essentially about two very traumatic experiences he went through, he doesn't sugarcoat his end of what he did. And this, to me, dives into the most fascinating aspects of this whole subject and actually telling a true life and making it feel true to life and not watering it down and not pulling the he said, she said, or the stalker's just wrong, or you're just right. Or this really is two broken people. And while I would say Donnie in this is probably the one, like he's the victim, obviously he's the one who gets some sympathy, but he does some fucked up shit too. And he is not completely guilty of stringing this along because he's so broken his own kind of, he likes the adulation. And he just takes it to a point to where he kind of leads her on a bit. And so it's really fascinating to see a show or someone talking about such a heavy thing. And then there's actually comedy in it, which, to walk a fine line of talking about a super dark subject and also having some comedic elements in it and having them actually land. And granted, some of it's situational comedy or just the way things are happening. But to me, this is a really, really ballsy story that this man actually had the gall to not only write this story and imbue this character himself, and he does a damn good job acting this out, by the way, too, but also being able to lay it all out there and not just be like, yeah, this crazy person stalked me, but really get into what he did, what his pain is, what his struggles are. He deals with his sexuality and all sorts of crazy shit. And it's really interesting, too, to see how the police and how law enforcement handles these very serious situations. And this is universal to men or women who go through this kind of a thing. And I mean, for women, it's a terrible process, but even for men too, it's that much harder because they don't seem to take those claims serious either. I feel like with women, it's just roadblocks. Like, dude has to do something. Well, by then it's too late. With guys, they don't even fucking take it serious. They don't even acknowledge it. So just with victims in general, and I think the problem with the law is it doesn't look at people are just victims. It doesn't matter if they're a man or a woman. A claim is a claim, and it should all be taken seriously. And that the show dives into all of this stuff very respectfully, but it's also, there are certain scenes where it's just like, bam, he just lays some shit out, and you're like, whoa. You'd be watching, I think you get to episode 4, and there is a fucking heavy ass scene in that. So, just fair warning, like, this show does not pull punches. And the thing that I like about this show is they don't go for it and show everything. It's just the implication, the setting, the lighting, the way he's acting, and he's narrating this to the cops. So the whole show is narrated to this police officer that he's trying to convince that this lady is crazy and stalking him and his family. And so I give any of the highlights. So as the non-spoiler section part, I don't want to give you any more. You should go into this if you are intrigued watching it. Just know there is some heavy material here. If you've gone through that, it might be a touchy, or I hate saying this word in this year, but triggering topic. And this is actually, I would use that term for very appropriately. So if stuff like that bothers you, this won't be your show. But for people who want to see an accurate portrayal and a subject done delicately and just a kind of interesting biopic type of thing on somebody's life, while also tackling very, very expertly insecurities, dealing with abuse and the outcome of that, trying to also make it what the consequences are and the choices of becoming famous, then definitely check this show out. It's fucking fantastic. I give this show a 9 out of 10. This is one of the hardest watches, but it's also one of the realest shows that I've watched. And there's been people, and I wanted to address this before I get into the thing that got people salty the most, but there's been people who've been like, oh, well, this didn't exactly happen as it's show. And the creator, Richard Gaddis, come out and go, yeah, of course it didn't, because it's television. You have to over-dramatize some of this because people have to watch it and have a vested interest. And, like, I get it. You see it with a lot of, like, based on a true story, based on a real war, based on a true battle. Like, I can't tell you how many of these I've seen where you're like, yeah, I know that, and that's kind of fictionalized or whatever. But this is as real, gritty, and grounded, I think, as it could get. And the thing that pisses me off the most, too, is this man is reliving his trauma to tell you the story about what happened to him. I find it kind of disrespectful, people coming out and going, yeah, but this scene didn't happen. Of course it didn't fucking happen. And why would you want the man to actually put in all of the shit and relive shit that he has struggled with for years to deal with? Who has the balls enough to even bring this story in some kind of a hope to help people out who are in his situation? Like, that's so disingenuous. Like, people, grow the fuck up. Come on. Like, that's so scummy for people to kind of put that through. I mean, he even points out his flaws and shitty things he's done, which I think just takes an extreme amount of balls to put yourself out there like that. And the fact that people have the nerve to be like, oh, but blah, blah, blah. It's like, shut the fuck up. And those are the people who are just petty and bitter and have nothing better to do with their lives. It's like, come on, grow the fuck up. Like, the fact that someone is confessing something, and this is why people don't talk about their situations, is because you got petty, dumb assholes out there who are just looking to pick apart everything. And don't get me wrong, I'm that guy. When it comes to stuff historically that already happened, people aren't alive to debate it. But with something like this man put it all out there. And if people can't accept the version of the story he chooses to tell, then you don't watch it. Hey, Togamina, it's good to see you. I am doing well. Just doing a quick review of Baby Reindeer. So what do I have to say? This is a 9 out of 10. This is a very hard watch. If you've been through stuff like this, I don't really suggest it for you because it does get dark, especially around the 4th episode. But if you can sit through it, there is a message in here, and there is a lot it has to say. And it also, I think, is a start in bringing these kinds of things forward for both men or women. And as stated in there, this also touches on stuff about being bisexual and things like that. And like, look, I know what people are going to say, political messaging, but this isn't a political statement as much as a part of this man's struggle and the things that added to where he's at now. And in that context, this is how you tell a story about that stuff without trying to squeeze it in. This isn't like, oh, he threw it in for a message. This is the man's life. These are the things he felt. This is what he went through in order to come out the other side and to make himself better as a person. And hey, what's up, Christine? Just here talking about Baby Reindeer. This is my non-spoiler assessment. I'll get into spoilers in a second. And I'll warn everybody when I do, in case you want to watch this. If you don't, or you think the subject matter might be too heavy for you, when I get to the second part, I'll just tell you things that people had an issue with, what I thought of it personally, and yada, yada, yada. It's 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. Definitely check it out. Probably one of the best Netflix kind of real story dramatization that they've released, because the guy is actually playing himself, and he wrote it, directed it, executive produced it. And for that, I give Richard Gatt all of the respect in the world. He wrote these shows. He produced it. He didn't direct it, but he also included notes and stuff like this. This man shot everything he wanted to do. He told the story how he wanted to tell it from his own life. So there's, to me, it feels authentic. That's about as real as you can get without damn near just being there with a camera shooting it as it happened. So go check it out. If you want a brief synopsis, I did it in the beginning. You know, struggling comedian, bartender, does a kind favor for some lady. Lady goes fucking nuts. That's the premise. There's other shit in there. Now, I'm going to issue a spoiler warning. Spoilers. I got to talk about something. It's huge spoilers. So if you don't want to know, click out, watch the show, come back, let me know what you think. Okay, so spoilers ahead. So this show is about Martha and Donnie changed course for the story's purposes, and Martha is fucking nuts stalking this dude. over a free cup of tea that he gave her. And so he strings her along. Things escalate. Now, like I said, I'm not going to spoil the whole thing. I'm not going to go through every fucking story beat. You have to watch it yourself. But in episode 4, which I said it's the heaviest and to be wary of it, he was assaulted in the beginning of his career by a high-up executive producer, told all of these things that were going to happen, how he's going to be famous. And, of course, the dude got him hooked on some stuff, and then discarded him. For somebody to come out and show this shit, and when I say it's dark, they imply heavily, like, cut to black before you see anything, but it is very much you know what's going to happen. And there's a question of, and he stated this, and people have a problem. This is why I wanted to spoil this one plot point, because of people's stupidity. They say, oh, he cuts to black, or from how I heard it, that's not exactly what happens. And the dude was like, the truth is, I was fucking drugged, and I do remember it, but, you know, very vaguely. And it's like, yeah, who's going to fucking want to do that all over again as a scene? You sick fucks. Like, people amaze me that this is a gripe. Like, I have some technical issues, and I think some of the humor is super dark in that it comes out of nowhere. That's my issues of why it's a 9 out of 10. There's just a few things here and there. But like I said, my job is to nitpick things. But on the whole, this is one of the most ballsy, grittiest kind of like you put yourself out there kind of thing. And your complaint was he didn't want to relive the exact fucking most traumatic experience of his life. How fucking stupid are people? I mean, seriously, like, this is a thing. They've berated this poor man, and it's disgusting to me, because it's like, you don't need to see everything. You don't need everything to be 100% like he just is gonna fucking relive everything for your entertainment, because that's what this is. This is a show on Netflix we are watching to be entertained by. And I mean, just think about that for a second. And I mean, even if it's not entertainment, because that might be a poor choice of words, that's just how it's labeled. I mean, we are consuming this, and we are watching someone's live experiences laid out before us. I think it's very disingenuous when people make these kinds of, one, simplistic view of this whole show, and two, just stupid. I don't know how else to put it. It's just stupid to me. Like, stupid. Why? Why do you care about what he chooses to over-dramatize versus what he chooses to put in there as a thing? Now, a lot of the sexuality and being bisexual thing is important, because whilst he was confused about what happened to him, he also goes through this thing of meeting someone who's a trans, and they build a relationship and start living together and whatnot. And there's also this confusing angle of having this secret. He thinks his parents is gonna like disown him and all of this stuff, and just dealing with what happened to him. On top of this, maybe I like to play both sides of the field, and that's when I said it's not political, because it's just him, his life. He's not trying to shove a message down like this is cool. It's actually quite the opposite, showing the harsh reality of being in this place where sexually you don't know who you are, and also being forced to do something sexually you didn't want to do, which makes it confusing when you meet someone and he can't get intimate with anyone. And I'm not going to get into the scene that kind of brings him towards the dark side, but there's a really messed up way he breaks past that using trauma from something else to help him through that trauma. Like, there is some crazy emotional dark shit in this show, and I'm just like, holy fuck, man, that is some dark shit. He basically uses the image of his stalker and doing things with them in order to get past someone doing stuff with him that was unwanted. And it's such a fucking ballsy thing for this man to admit and to put down his process of actually getting over this shit. And now the biggest thing, and once again, spoiler warning, one more time, I'm going to spoil something at the very end. has a breakdown. He goes up on stage and tells fucking everything, like everything we've been watching. And they kind of cut it because they don't do that stupid thing where they recap everything you've been watching. And keep in mind, this is a show, it's 7 episodes. It's a quick watch. There, I think, might be an hour, or less, a little under. It's about 7 hours, maybe, give or take. But anyways, so he has a breakdown, like a full-on breakdown while he's about to do a performance on stage, and just vents everything to this crowd of people. And the crowd is silent and stunned. And then he just walks off. And he gets the biggest fucking applaud. And he gets famous to where he's at now by telling everyone in the crowd what happened during a comedy set. And just blows up. But the fucking craziness doesn't stop there. And this is people's problem. So the guy who did the thing to him years ago, he comes back because he's going to confront him. He's going to get his trauma out. And so he goes back to confront him. And the dude, A, doesn't remember the event whatsoever. But B, has the balls to offer him a job. And there is something, and so this whole thing, and then, you know, with the inner monologue, he's like, does it make me a bad person that I took him up on his offer? And people have been going fucking nuts on the internet going, oh, how dare they glorify it, and there's no consequences and blah, blah, blah. But that's the point. People don't get justice sometimes. Sometimes there is no happy ending in that fucking field, especially with comedians or people who are actors. Listen to the thousands of fucking stories I've covered here on Hollywood. That is the point. That sometimes there is no justice. And you know what? I'm sitting back watching going, you know what? Good for you. Then take this motherfucker for all he's worth. Because in a sense, that's the only form of justice you're going to get. Like, he has already confronted everything, and his last thing is he just wants to ask the dude why, but the dude doesn't even remember. Doesn't even fucking care. And that's the point. And he monologues that. At the end of the day, you know, he could go to the police or whatever else, but this dude's famous. He's untouchable. So at the end of the day, there's no justice for him for this one particular thing. Now, I'm not going to lay out everything like I said it. I just wanted to highlight this one part because people lost their shit on the internet and went, well, oh my God, why is it? And that's such a terrible ending because what's that trying to say? And I swear to God, it's these people who don't like have any, just like, don't look at the surface level kind of thing. This isn't just something that's going to be fucking laid out for you where you go, there you go. Here's your spoon-fed answers. That wasn't the point. You're missing the point of what you're saying in that is that he was traumatized with all of this. And at the end of the day, the person who does this doesn't, obviously, they don't fucking care about the victim. That's not what it is. But I think people's biggest hang-up was, well, then why would he go back and use the guy to get famous? My question to you is, why not? Why not? Like, he went there to confront him. The guy didn't even fucking remember who he was, just knew of him from back in the day till now, and now that he's famous, and he's like, books him a show. And it's a real legit thing, and he's going to become famous. So it's like, yeah, why wouldn't you take that offer? Like, I get it. I get other people's side of the argument. I get what you're fucking saying. Like, I get it. But no justice is going to be done to this guy. He's fucking rich. And he knows that. He even knows that confronting this guy right now and saying what he said, the guy just brushes it off like it was a normal fucking Tuesday. So if he's not going to get any justice from the courts or any kind of resolution, then get your justice the other way and make money off of it. And I can't say that's a bad philosophy at the end of the day. Because really, you're going to go through court, you're going to spend money you don't have to what, maybe get a verdict for something that happened to you like 10 or 20 years ago? Good fucking luck. But his revenge is the show we're watching. His way of venting, his calling this out is from what we've been watching. And that's the fucking point. Yes, at the moment, he didn't get justice. Yes, this guy doesn't give a shit. This guy's still working. He's still fucking making people famous and probably doing fucked up shit. But at the end of the day, that wasn't the point. How Richard Gatt got through this is by telling the story and making money off of it. And sadly, that's his only Catholicism. That's his only way he's going to be able to move past it. And he has. It's heavily implied he has. And that's the interesting thing, because this is split into two stories in one that very much work together because they're so weaved into the whole entire tale. This isn't just a tale about crazy soccer lady. This is also a tale about trauma that happened to him leading right up to the events. And that, in a sense, him meeting her and doing this made him go back and reevaluate everything that happened to him. Because in these situations, there's two types of people, and they talk about this. There's the external, which is what Martha is, crazy fucking stalk you at your house, fucking that crazy shit. And there's the internal, where you destroy yourself in your relationships and everything that you have. So they were two opposing forces with the same trauma and the same kind of thing, but they were two different types. She was external and he was internal. So he was internally destroying himself, and she was externally destroying every single fucking person she ever met. And it was two of these opposing forces with the same exact thing meeting together. And through that, though, he managed on kind of repairing himself, where she's just always going to be who she is. And I think that's the most fascinating and kind of sad part about this whole thing. And I found it even sadder that people still berate this poor guy on little facts and shit like that. And it's like, dude, if this was somebody else playing this dude, somebody else writing, Netflix producing, or whatever else, I'd be like, sure, okay, that, you know, because you're playing around with someone's life. But what it's the person who went through it, who wrote, produced, directed, and starred in it. I'm pretty fucking sure they're being as fucking accurate as they care to be. And I was talking with Bitchy about this when she was here. It's just like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Like, who wants to fucking traumatize themselves for us to watch over again, and then have to watch it and edit it and cut the movie and do promotions and talk about it and get berated by stupid fucking people on the internet about the inaccuracies in their fucking story? Are you kidding me? Like, seriously, people's stupidity sometimes just downright astonishes me, especially when I was reading about it. And even people in the media, and, you know, the media and the whole, like, oh, it was great, but there was some things. And why didn't he dive deeper into the sexuality? Because that wasn't the show. That was a piece. All of these things are pieces of the story that happened that got him to the point he's at. This isn't a fucking political statement or anything. This is the man's life. That's what makes the way he tells it so interesting, and why I cared about that stuff, because it was part of the character. It was the struggle. On top of the external factors, it was the internal struggle he was wrestling with while this other shit was going on, until he just fucking broke down and laid it all on the line. And that was the moment of healing. Now, is he 100%? Probably not. But these are the things that it took to get him to this point. So I found it very fascinating. Definitely go and check it out. I will warn you, it is difficult at a certain point. I'd say about episode 4 or 5 is when it gets super fucking difficult to watch, because of the thing that happens in 4 that's heavily implied. Even just how it's shot and stuff. I think sometimes the hardest thing to watch is the things you don't see. And I think that's what's clever about the show, and that's what he realized. It's easy to show something and just be sick and gross about it. But I think what sticks in people's minds more is when you don't show it, but you have to infer on your own what actually happened. And I also think it's easier for people who deal with that shit. They don't want to see that shit being filmed. And I don't think he honestly wanted to film it either. So the fact that it goes into very heavy implications right down to the wire. I mean, from episode 4, I'd say 5, 6, and then the extremely fucking crazy 7. It's this like slow building, and I do have to say, like, episodes 1, 2, and 3 are really slow builds up to what happens, but I think that makes everything that happens in the later episodes really fucking impactful. And like I said, I didn't tell the whole ending. I didn't give everything away because I want you guys to watch it. Just that one specific point I had to bring up because that was the point people were focusing on. When so much other fucking crazy shit happens in the show, and I find it super weird on what people hyper focus on when they're doing these kind of reviews. It's like, dude, there's so much fucked stuff that's touched and covered, and he does so much, and I respect that too, structurally, with this story. Now, I do admit some plot points get kind of thrown away. There's some things I would have liked to be in depth with the parents and what kind of reinforced this belief he had, because the parents are in there and they're highlighted in a couple episodes, but it doesn't really dive into that. And I get it. Like I said, this is the dude's real life. He probably doesn't want to fucking put all his dynamics in there because these are real people. Even though it's changed and the names are changed, these are real people in his life, his real fucking parents. And I'm pretty sure, like, the conversations and shit that happened weren't exactly how they were portrayed, but I get the reasons of why. You're talking about people you know. People who are your family who are going to fucking watch this show. You know, you kind of don't want to portray them in a shitty light. And I get that. But I gotta say, they get way fucking cooler than I thought that conversation was gonna go down when he comes out with his feelings and his confusions about his sexuality. Is like, I was like, man, they're handling that spectacularly well, considering like his father's background in particular. But I think that's the point of the show, is that he took this stuff and internalized it and took the hard road where he could have just opened up and talked. And he also expresses too how when people go through this stuff, it's not easy for them to talk about. It's not something they're going to open up about. And this stuff does get internalized, and you do deal with it in inappropriate manners. And his was kind of internalizing, sometimes just lashing out about certain things with the person he's interested in the show and things like that, and his barrier of not being able to consummate their relationship, I'll say. And it's fucking raw. It's like, wow, like somebody had the balls to put that, because even if you omit the thing with the parents, like talking about your sex life to everyone and like the damage it's done. And it's not just sexually either. Like, you could see it in conversations, and this person is somebody who accepts everything and accepts this barrier that he has without him even fucking explaining the reasons why he can't be intimate. It's just crazy shit. What's up, Carmen? It's just crazy show. And it's a crazy perspective, and it's really gutsy from Richard Gadd's perspective to write something like this. And once again, I know I'm highlighting it a lot, but not only write, but star and act and fucking knock it out of the park with your acting too. Like, this man has a lot to do on screen and deal with the fact that this is his story. So essentially, he's reliving his trauma, acting it out, but he fucking nails it. And maybe that's a stupid statement to say, because I'm gathering he's channeling the real emotions he felt. So I don't see how you can fake much of that, but just there's some scenes, especially when it gets to the breakdown and the monologue he gives on stage about every fucking thing and just all of his emotions. And it's like cry, anger, wondering why, more anger, crying. Like he's got to switch through several different emotions at once. Fucking hats off. One of the best performances I've seen in a very long time. And let me not take it away from the stalker, because holy shit, she has to pretend to be normal, then do crazy, then do manipulative, and then show real vulnerability when something is revealed about this character. Because like I said, I'm not going to spoil anything. I just spoiled that one part because it goes into my rating. But Jessica Gunning is someone to look out for. Holy fucking shit. Because you have to make this character like sympathetic at a point, and she just fucking nails it. There's some things where you're like, I'm on her side, I get it. And then she does some crazy fucking shit, and you're like, yeah, that's right, you're nuts. But you get it. And I think that's the most interesting part too, because he also doesn't paint the stalker as just this evil person. She's complex. She's a fucking human being, and she's had trauma. And that's kind of the message, is that trauma is circular, and that trauma inflicted on someone will be inflicted back, whether it's to themselves or to other people. Now she, like I said, is external and inflicts it on the whole fucking world. He is internal and has been destroying himself for years in every fucking relationship and every job opportunity and everything he's ever had. And when you put two fucked up people together with emotional baggage, holy fucking shit, just things go down, because he at a point sees the stalking to validate his own feelings and kind of encourages it. And she feeds this delusion. And then what the fuck? You drank like all of this. And then it gets to a certain point. I'll buy you another one. It gets to a certain point where the delusion and the need to feed this inner confidence conflict with each other. And it's such an interesting study of putting two fucked up people with fucked up emotional problems together and seeing what happens. And holy shit, this bitch is crazy. Like, whew, that is not a woman I would want to piss off. And at the same time, I understand why she does what she does, even though she's completely wrong. Like, she does some fucked shit, like inexcusable shit, but I get it. And he's ballsy for showing the fact that he encouraged this behavior and admitting that. But it comes to a point where it's like, yeah, you did that, and then the person takes it that one step over the line where you're like, nah, man, that's too far. Even if he strung her along and was doing things for his own personal reasons, there's a certain point where you're like, nah, man, I can't even see this from her perspective, because she does something totally fucked. And it's interesting because as he's monologuing this and everything, he even sympathizes with her. And there's a great shot where at the beginning she asked for tea. That's how this whole fucking thing started. Just a cup of fucking tea. And then he is sitting at a random bar, and there's a bartender there. And he's like looking around, and he just got done emotionally fucking destroying himself and revealing all these deep, dark secrets. He goes into this bar and he asks the bartender, he's like, fuck. And he looks around and he just gives his money. He's like, can I get a cup of tea? I don't have any money. I'll pay you back. And the dude gives him tea. And it's a callback from the beginning. And it just shows, and it zooms in on his face, and that's the realization. It just shows that sometimes there's giving someone a little bit of comfort without, going too far with it. And that's when it dawns on him how it could have ended this interaction, but we've seen how it actually ended. And it's a cool little dynamic between her scene and his scene. When you go back through and rewatch it, it's like it connects it and it ends it kind of there, where we're just seeing the mirror image of the different scenarios. And it's and it's so you kind of realize like shit. Yeah. I was the catalyst to a lot of this. And I find it so interesting when a show can challenge you and not just paint people simply good or bad. There's multiple layers because a situation like this or these situations in general aren't just black and white. There's chains of events and things that lead into it. Now, some people just talk people are fucking nuts and that's just end of story. But for this situation, holy shit, the complexities and the things that were in it and the fact that it's two people who have had this. And like I said, I'm not going to spoil everything, so I'm not going to say what her story has, but it's very similar. And you get, like I say, you get to that moment in a weird way where you kind of feel for the stalker too, because you know the information of what's going on with her. But it does kind of reaffirm that message. It's not okay. Even if something happens to you, there's still a right and a wrong way to handle things. And from anybody, it's not okay to do that to someone else, especially if it was done to you and you know what it feels like. But it does heavily imply this broke her up there, and that is also understandable too. So like I said, this show tackles it and there's no definitive answers. And I think that's what people wanted. They wanted to sit down and watch this show and go, yeah, bad. She's bad. He's bad. Jail time. Everybody, gets their justice. When he's saying there is no justice, there's only this thing happened and I had to get over it, basically. And think about that. That's kind of fucked up. Even from his perspective. And he shows that. And that's the whole point. And I don't even think that was really the point of what he was saying. Oh yeah, and then he could have fudged it. He met the dude and punched him, and then he got taken to jail, and he turned out to become famous, and now he's telling the story, and this bad man got what was coming to him. No, though, that doesn't happen. That's not real life. These people don't get punished, especially these fucking elitist people don't have anything happen to them until years later. And that's the point. So he did what he had to do. He took that shitty situation and became famous and writes and directs and donates to these charities now and is doing this story to bring awareness. And I think at the end of the day, that's the best you could hope for in a situation like this. To me, he's doing the best form of revenge. This dude doesn't remember, doesn't give a shit. He'll probably watch this show and go, oh yeah, I remember that. And then fucking give it a fucking 4-star rating and click on to the next thing. Because that's how these sick fucking people are, and you can't change that. But maybe he's helped and inspired someone. Maybe he's helped someone tell their story. Maybe he's got reviewers like me talking about it, so that if someone sees this and watches this show and it speaks to them, they have the courage to speak up. That, to me, is the best form of revenge. And I think that is the point of what he's saying. Yeah, dude's not in jail. Yeah, he's making money. Yeah, he's probably fucked over more people and done more shitty things. But he got his form of revenge. He's famous. He wrote the show. He directed it. And now he's helping out people who are like him. To me, that's the best you can do. And so I applaud you, Richard Gatt. You've got the biggest set of balls. I don't know that personally. They don't really show nothing. But I will say, dude's got to have the biggest set of balls anything to even put this out into the world when it's you. And for that alone is worth the watch. Just someone being brave enough to put this shit out there. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Not sugarcoating it. To admit your own flaws in the whole thing. To even indicate you had your own thing in this. That's pretty fucking gutsy. It's good for you, Richard Gatt. I wish you all of the fame in the world. ballsy move. Good on you. And really, I hope this helps you get past that shit, because at the end of the day, this man is never going to be 100% healed. But hopefully he got to a place where he can find someone nice that he connects to, and he worked this shit out. I really do mean that. Like, I really do hope this dude found the piece he was looking for. I mean that 1,000%, because holy fucking shit, do you deserve it. And hopefully this encourages other people who are going through this to be able to say something and get help for themselves. And I hope this influences, because unlike that one show about that subject you can't say on YouTube, what was it? The one with the tapes. Fuck, I always forget that show. 13 Reasons Why, yeah. Unlike 13 Reasons Why, I think this tackles this subject much better than that did. And don't get me wrong, the first season was very, like, kind of on point, a little bit gritty, a little hard to handle. But I think this one tackles that slightly better than 13 Reasons Why did. And that's even the book that it's based on, too. It's... I get it, but I think the way they went about it, marketing it, was a little bit different. Here, this handles the subject very well, very maturely, because the dude is actually working and in charge of every aspect on it. So I imagine he wanted to handle this very particular way, and he did an excellent job in doing it. And for all of the people who sat there and bitched because this man didn't lay out every scene for scene, everything that happened, and you didn't get a happy ending at the end of this man's fucking story, you're stupid. I'm sorry. Like, this is the dumbest fucking take ever. Grow up. That's all I gotta say. Like, welcome to the real world. This isn't a fucking fairy tale. Shit happens. I know. Shit happens. People get away with shit. And the best thing you can hope for is to heal yourself and find your own inner peace. Whether that's with people you love who help you get to a better place, or whether that's telling a fucked up story for everybody to watch on Netflix. And at the end of the day, I think the point of it is that you've got to find your own ways to heal. At the end of the day, it is up to you to try to work through your issues, to seek the kind of help that you need, and also to not perpetuate the same cycle that you were a victim of, because it isn't right either way. Even if the worst thing happened to you, it's not right to do that to somebody else. And I think that's a lot of the theme of this show too, is that this shit just creates more victims and creates more people and issues that it happens to, and it's not right for them either. So I think it's got a very good message, very powerful stuff, very hard to watch. And that's my take on Baby Reindeer. If you're intrigued, go watch it. But just be warned. Episode 4 is a fucking tough watch. And from there on, it gets very dark, very fast. And some of the stuff, if you've had traumatic experiences like this, may be difficult to watch. But I think the overall message and what the show's conveying is worth the watch. And trust me, it's not something you could just watch again and again. It's a very tough thing to get through. So thank you, everybody, for watching. If you like this video, hit that like button, share this around the interwebs, and let them know that General Zod has the best reviews ever. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. And as always, remember, there is only one rule here in the Fandom Zone: kneel before General Zod.